Good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of TokYo-Yo Tutorials. My name is T. Okay, people, it's time for me to make a tutorial on that trick. Yeah, that one. I'm going to be doing a tutorial today on Boingy Boing, which looks like this. And this is just one of those tricks. It's quite a challenge to learn. A lot of people have a lot of trouble with this one. I was definitely one of them. I spent probably a year on and off, month to month, picking it up, failing, and then trying it again the next month, getting frustrated over and over, just endless cycle of trying to do it and not figuring it out. I watched every tutorial under the sun on this, found countless tips on different things you can do to try to figure it out. And in this tutorial, I'm going to use third person and first person to try to explain it to you guys. And I'm hoping that after I've collected everything and I've explained it clearly, I'm hoping this will be the last Boingy Boing tutorial you'll ever need. With that in mind, that's a tall order. Let's get into the tutorial. So the main yo-yo I'll be using in this tutorial is the iYoyo Veritas Pro. I do recommend a smaller throw for this. I'll explain why. And I'll also be using the Yo-Yo Empire Notice as well. Now these are the three yo-yos that I've been using to learn this trick, the Space Cadet. Here's the Yoku Storm. Now I really recommend using a throw that is a little bit more on the narrow side. It's going to train you to be more accurate. You see, it is more narrow than the Space Cadet and the Notice. I really recommend learning on a smaller yo-yo rather than a bigger one. Bigger ones are fine, but they will kind of spoil you a little bit. Alright, let's get into the tutorial proper. So you're going to start with a basic throw down here, front style throw. You're going to get into your split bottom mount, as you can see here. And you're going to use the momentum of getting into the mount, and then you're going to reverse your hands here. You can see my throw hands coming up, non-throw hand going down. And that launches the yo-yo forward into that front string. And then you're raising your throw hand up and down in order to make the yo-yo go front to back. You don't want to swing the yo-yo or anything like that. You want to just make sure that you move your throw hand up and down. You can see my throw hand, or my throw arm here rather, is moving all the way from the elbow out to the hand. The way I dismount it here is you let the yo-yo stop in the front, then you just unroll the yo-yo like so. There are other ways to dismount this trick, which I'll be showing you in just a moment, but that's the most basic way when you're starting out, I believe. Okay, let's take another look here. Again, front style throw, and we are going to get into our split bottom mount, and we are going to reverse the orientation of our hands. So our throw hand will come up, our non-throw hand will go down, and you're going to notice here, as I'm starting to get into the mount, my hands are switching position, and the motion of doing that, you can see here, as I'm moving my throw hand up, it's actually going to kind of help you. That first bounce is absolutely essential. This first part here where you're launching the yo-yo forward is what gets you into the yo-yo trick more easily. I feel like if you don't do that properly or you don't practice that way, it's going to be very difficult to do this trick. Again, you can see that my throw hand is just going up and down, very stable from the elbow all the way to the hand. And my non-throw hand is not doing anything except keeping the configuration nice and stable. This time I dismount by leaving the yo-yo in the back instead of the front and performing a simple ripcord motion, which will leave you in a bind position. It's a very convenient and quite flashy way to exit the trick. Okay, let's get into our first person breakdown here. You can see this is the first way I think you should learn to get the motion of the trick down, is just getting this first bounce down. So you start in your split bottom mount, and you can see as I switch position of my hands, it kind of launches the yo-yo forward. You can see here that on my throw hand pointer, it's just keeping the strings kind of lined up nice and straight. You want to make sure your strings are straight, and then my non-throw hand also is holding the configuration straight. You don't need to pinch or anything, and you want to make sure that you leave a little bit of slack. You don't want it to be too tight of a formation or the boing won't be able to happen. Let's see one more time. I believe that's how you really should learn to get the trick down, is just get that first bounce down at first. When you're first practicing, just learn it that way, just to get that bounce. Again, make sure that your strings up here are all very straight. That is absolutely essential. And make sure that your yo-yo is pretty much in the middle. I find that really helps, and make sure that everything is lined up. If you can't line everything up, it's going to foul you up every time. So here's the trick full motion. This is what it should look like. We're going to slow it down in just a moment, so don't worry. Now here I'm going to illustrate the point of why that first launch, that first bounce is so important. You're seeing I'm getting into the split bottom mount here. I'm switching the position of my hands, and you can see that it's very important here that once I've started to switch the position of my hands, that actually shoots the yo-yo forward into that first bounce. That is so essential. You can't do the trick without that. And from there, it's really pretty simple. You're just moving your throw hand up and down, and that motion is what gets that bounce to happen. That's all that's going on. You can see here, my throw hand is doing all the work. It's just going up and down from the elbow out to my hand. And your non-throw hand isn't doing anything except keeping the strings straight and keeping everything from, falling off, basically. That's really all there is to this trick. I know it's a very difficult to pick up the feeling, but you will learn the feeling eventually. If you can nail that first little bounce, you can launch the yo-yo forward, you're going to have a much easier time with this trick. But you can see that my non-throw hand isn't doing anything except keeping it straight. My throw hand is doing all the work, going up and down, making sure that the yo-yo is bouncing in time. Now here I'm going to be exiting this trick from the front into that very simple dismount. Here it is one more time. You're going to see it a little bit at regular speed, and I'm going to show you the dismount with the ripcord. So you're doing the trick in the exact same way, except you can see here I'm actually stopping the trick when the yo-yo is towards me instead of away from me. And I'm going to perform a simple ripcord, which you do by rolling the yo-yo towards yourself over the strings twice and then letting it fall off. And that's a ripcord. And now I'm going to break it down with a bunch of different tips, and hopefully some of these tips will help you figure the trick out for yourself. So the first tip I'd like to give you is to make sure that you know where the yo-yo is going to be in the configuration. You don't want it to be too low or too high unless you're doing a variation on Boingy Boing, but at the beginning it's very important that you check the height of the yo-yo and you make sure it's not dead center. It doesn't have to be right in the middle, but it does help the closer to the middle that you can get it. Now this one is so important. This is something I made a mistake of doing for a long time. Once you're in your configuration, try your best not to swing the yo-yo. You see my hand is going forward and back here, and all it's doing is pushing the yo-yo around. It looks terrible, it feels terrible, and it doesn't work. Make sure that your hand is going up and down and not front to back. That'll really help you in the long run. Now this one may be pretty natural, but just make sure you keep your strings straight. Make sure you're keeping your hands in plane at all times. This is another one that I had trouble with. Make sure that you don't jerk your hand around. I used to kind of bounce the strings and bounce the yo-yo back and forth. It didn't really help. You really have to kind of go up and down in a very smooth motion. Here's another one. I see some people recommend this when you're starting out, but I really don't recommend this. Some people think that you should pinch the string up here, that it'll give you more control. Maybe that works for some people, but it doesn't for me. It causes slack to form, and it also just feels like you don't have any control over the configuration of the trick. So I recommend that you don't pinch the string. This is another one that I had a lot of trouble with at the beginning. This goes along with not jerking your hands and making sure that you're not swinging the yo-yo. Make sure that you're moving your arm from the elbow out to your hand. It really helps. That'll help you get the motion down, making sure that you're using your whole arm and not just your hand. It'll keep you from jerking it around too much. Now I know I mentioned at the beginning that you should practice that first bounce, that first launch is really essential, and that's true. But once you start getting the feeling for it, make sure that you don't just do that bounce and then try to get into it. Do it all in one smooth motion. Get right into the trick as quickly as you can. So once you learn how to make momentum from that first bounce, that first launch, you want to just try to do the whole trick in one go, because if you try to separate the trick out, you're going to lose your momentum. This is another one that helps people. It definitely helps me. You can angle it slightly towards yourself. Your throw hand can be slightly towards yourself, giving you a little bit more of an angle. Gravity will help you with that. And don't be afraid to try out different yo-yos. Here I'm using the Notice, as I mentioned at the beginning. It's a little more organic, a little more rounded. Different weights, different balances, different feels may just help keep the trick fresh for you. It may make it a little more interesting. Also, it won't help you like learn the trick in a second, but it may give you sort of a different feel or a different outlook on the trick. And of course, practice, practice, practice. Alright boys and girls, thanks so much for watching. I really hope this tutorial helped. I tried to get everything in there that I could possibly think of that would help, that I hadn't seen before or that I thought needed to really be stressed. If you still do have questions, please don't hesitate to put it down in the comments. Let me know. I'll do the best I can to help you. It's absolutely paramount to the learning of this trick is that you practice it. Seriously, you got to practice it every day. I even found that like if I didn't practice it until the evening time, I started to get a little bit rusty. You start to lose the feeling pretty quick. So just make sure that once you start to get the feeling down, don't let it go. Practice it all the time to make sure you maintain the feel. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Take care, have a nice day, and sayonara.